sort of gets me every time. I'll run away, I'll never hide. When the truth comes, I'ma be just fine. When the day awaits and the night alive, yeah, we gon' be alright.
He said, move around, what you doing now? Doing now, said my mind gone. He said, why now? I said, I lost it now. He said, really high.
Why has the history of African peoples been erased? Well, we don't live in a fair world. Things aren't fair. You don't get equal opportunities. You get the opportunities that you create for yourself. And if someone gets in there first and they conquer you, they colonize you, they enslave you, they simply make your history disappear to make it look like they conquered, colonized, and enslaved nobodies. When people have a history, that makes you a somebody. So if you remove the history, you become a nobody. And so your history disappearing, nobody's lamenting the loss of that history. That's why conquerors, colonizers, and enslavers make the people whose history they've conquered, colonized, and enslaved disappear. There are psychological reasons why people would want to associate themselves with a history. There is a link between what someone thinks of themselves, what someone thinks of their people, and their history. Now, scholars talk about personal esteem, that means self-esteem, and then you have interpersonal or group esteem, which is what you think of your group or what you think of your race, racial esteem. Self-esteem and racial esteem are not the same thing. Someone can have very high self-esteem where they think highly of themselves and very low racial esteem where they think very badly of other Black people. And in truth, most Black people have very high self-esteem and very low racial esteem. And that's one of the reasons why Black people are prone to fight each other, prone to disagree with each other, prone to conflict with each other, because someone thinks very highly of themselves and someone thinks very lowly of their group. And what happens is, if people can call each other the N and the B words, they're really saying, I don't give a monkey's about the Black race. They've really just said that their racial esteem is very, very low. But every Black person usually has very high personal esteem. So if someone thinks highly of themselves and very lowly of their group, that is a recipe for fighting. That is a recipe for conflict. And the way to raise people's racial esteem is to introduce them to their history. And if the history happens to be a great history, a history that people objectively can be proud of, they will see their people in a very different way to how they see their people at present. And that's the difference between high self-esteem, low racial esteem, to having a balance where you have high self-esteem and high racial or ethnic esteem. The purpose of my work generally is to build that psychological balance between high personal esteem and high self-esteem.
Welcome to another episode of our show. We're some of the brothers from the Body of Christ Church. And as always, it's a blessing and a pleasure to come out and bring forth the words of the living God to his people. The topic today is scattered. We're going to continue with our scattered episode of us being scattered in Europe. And I wanted to open up with that video. That video is it's called The Reason Europeans Erase Africans from History. It's from School of Pan-African Thought on YouTube. And the reason I wanted to play it, I thought it was a good way to segue into the topic today, because that's exactly what has happened. Um, our history has been erased. A lot of things that we have done and achieved in this world as a people have been erased. And it's not just us as a people that don't know our history and don't think much of ourselves as a people, as that gentleman was bringing out, but it's also other nations. When they look at us and when you talk about what we have achieved, they look at us, oh, black people. Because I was watching a show too where this was a talk show, news talk show, and they were saying that what have black people contributed to the world, and basically saying we ain't contribute nothing. You know, when you listen to what the people that were calling in were saying, and which is not true, but it's all part of the deception and the erasing of our history, where not only we look at ourselves as not achieving anything and look down on ourselves and our abilities to do greatness and our children as being great, but we look at ourselves as have not done anything, but also other people look at us the same way. So before we get into it, I want to give my brother here, Aban, a chance to comment on this and
Well,
introduce yourself.
first and foremost, I don't know where that echo is coming from. First and foremost, we want to give all praises to the Most High in the name of Christ for allowing us to come out here for this technical difficulty-free experience, to edify our people, to exhort them to come back to their proper position in history so that we may be delivered at the time of deliverance instead of punished at the time of deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you found that, and the only thing I can think of is how we've been convinced, Jesse Jackson, Franz Boas, Melville Herskovitz, to think that we are African. But, the Scattered series has been bringing that out, that we are not African, even though some of us might have come from Africa. But, we're concentrating on a different area right now. So, there's so many that I thought of about 18 carnal references and about 20 scriptures while he was talking. So I don't want to fill up the whole space with a rant. You know what I mean? But, let's just go ahead, bro. All praises.
Yeah. Well, we were, Africa's, like we always say, Africa's a continent, and there's many different dark families that were in Africa, and we were one of them that were in Africa, and we achieved great things. And one of the things that we did bring out is, they always talk about Europeans or Caucasians created everything, and they're the beacon of light in the world. But when you look at some of the history we went through, they got their alphabet, numbering system, civilization from us, really, when you look at it, not only during the time of antiquity, going, back 1200 BC, which you're going to hit some of that. But also, when you look at what the Moors accomplished coming from Africa and going into Europe, and all the inventions they brought into Europe, they brought Europe out of the Dark Ages, or what they call the Dark Ages. But
one thing, brother, a lot of times people think that the Moors went into Europe and invaded a so-called continent, invaded a land full of present-day type Europeans, and that was not so either. So, like Mills Lane in Celebrity Deathmatch used to say, "Let's get it on."
I want to start with this other clip. This sister, man, she did some research, man. She brought out a lot of stuff that we brought out, and I was like really amazed. I'm not gonna play that much of that clip today, but I do want to play some of it to segue into a lot of the stuff we want to bring out.
Okay.
She did an amazing job, man. I gotta salute her, man. And this video itself is on YouTube. It's called "The Black Moors of Europe and the UK, Renaissance to Reformation, and Royals rebrand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Introduce Into All Truth is her page. If anybody want to go watch the video.
Mm-hmm.
Very good video, man. She did a lot of research and brought out some good information. I really want to give her credit and thank her for her work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me share the screen real quick and pull it up out of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on. Let me make sure I don't start off with a commercial because
Yeah. YouTube is famous for their commercials.
okay, here it goes.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck is going on? Cheer.
Okay, full screen it.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah, there you go, bro. That's it.
She started off with a chapter 2. It says, they have taken crafty counsel against. This is Psalms 83. Matter of fact, you want to pull that up real quick?
Yeah.
You want to read it? Just read it. Psalms 83 and verse 3.
Okay.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones, which is what was actually done.
Mm-hmm.
But as we we've been bringing out when we do this series that it was done because of us being disobedient to our God, our power.
Yep. Psalms 83 verse 3. I'm gonna read verses 3 through 5 right quick. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So those scriptures got it recorded. We couldn't record it. We didn't know what was being done. And we're waking up to this now because the Most High is waking us up. But the scriptures also tell us in Revelation that Satan shall let out a great flood to carry away the woman. And we know that flood is a bunch of lies concerning who we are as the Most High's people. But it also says that the earth will open her mouth and help the woman. And we are receiving help from archaeological facts that is coming out showing the records of who we really are as the people of the Most High. And it also said that we would become, the Most High told us that we would become a proverb and a byword among all people where we shall go. And we see that because every time we look at history and make the connection with Israel, they're not being called Israel. They're being called all different names. Even the Moor is not the name of that people.
Neither is Phoenician.
Yeah, exactly.
So you want me to read? You want me to read that Deuteronomy 32 right quick as well?
No, you don't have to read that one.
Okay.
But you said I would make the remnant of them cease from among men, which the Most High did do. All right, here we go.
Who are the Moors? The story of the Moors is a story of stolen and hidden identities. In this video, I hope to address that. But one of the primary things is that the Kabbalah says in order to enslave a people, you must make them black. Black actually means blanco, white. So let's look into the history of the Moors and who the Moors actually are. So in this part of the series, I am just going to track the transition of the Moors from negro to blanco. From negro to blanco.
I'm gonna move ahead a little.
Yeah.
So the point she was saying is that the history of the Moors have been whitewashed, basically is what she's saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is true.
Yeah. And also when you have something written down in black pencil on a piece of paper and you erase it, what are you taking and doing from that record? You making it from black and white on paper to just a white sheet of paper. So the traces and the records and of us and who we are have been erased because they went confederate against thee, because the Lord said he would allow them to do this or raise them up to do this because of our sins.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Of Europe. So we're going to be looking at all of these families in terms of them being contemporaries at this pinnacle of European history, and then this transition from Negro to Blanco. So that's sort of the context that I'm going with here. So just for a quick review, we already established that.
All right. I want this chart here she pulled out is a very good chart.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to deal with some things on this chart here. So it said 10 tribes and Zidon set up a navy of Tarshish trading posts, Gibraltar,
Mm-hmm.
David and Solomon, empire of ancient Israel, ships sent to America. And we went through that in the first and second episode, I believe.
Yeah. And we kept referring back to it because, you know, it's just a tremendous lie, the size of the kingdom of Israel and the dominion they had at the time of David and Solomon.
Absolutely. And the position that the Canaanites, the Sidon, the sons of Canaan played, they tried to give them more of the credit of being the Phoenicians and the people. But when we went through the scriptures, we show you that they were servants. And Israel was the one that was really doing everything, and the Most High's hand was with Israel and blessing them and give them that authority where they control commerce, they control the money and trade and everything. They were the rulers of the world at that time. And they were control of everything. They even tried to give the credit of Hebrew to the Canaanites, that they're the ones that created that.
Talking about the writing?
Yeah, the writing, Hebrew writing and alphabet and all that stuff, that the Greeks got it from them, the Phoenicians, which really they got it from Israel.
Yeah, and they say Phoenicia was the northern, you know, eastern coast of the Mediterranean. The whole eastern seaboard of the Mediterranean was known as Phoenicia. That was their name for our people, period.
Or that part of their empire.
The Mauritanians appeared about 1100 BC at the time of the height of the Solomon Empire.
And I got to give her credit too, because she referred to them as the Moors, because that was the beginning of the Moor, because the area was Mauritania or Morocco, that whole area. We were set it up as a trading post, and we were settling in those areas just to regroup on some of the things that we have already brought out. Which she's correctly bringing out as well.
In North Africa. And that was basically in the form of the Ephraimites of the Northern Kingdom trading with the ships of Tarshish out of the area of Gibraltar, what was later called Gibraltar.
And another thing, she says the Northern Kingdom, but it was the whole kingdom, even though that territory was occupied by the Northern Kingdom. I think it was, if I remember correctly, what tribe was it? Naphtali that was in that area?
Yes.
That was their territory?
Yes. But it was under the dominion of the whole entire nation, even though there was a split that happened
later on.
Later on.
Okay. And she speaks here about the fall of the Northern Kingdom, 10 tribes, Assyrian captivity, founded and settled in Mogada. Which is really, she's saying a lot of them went to Mauritanian area and began to settle during the time of the conquering of the Northern Kingdom, or the fall of the Northern Kingdom, which is some good information there. Gauls from the tribe of Dan sacked Rome.
And what do they call it? The Black Dan River, the Danube. And there's a lot of, you know, things like Danish and stuff like that. I'll give you an example of how they whitewashed it. Look up Wikipedia, Daniel Webster, the dictionary guy. It'll have a picture of a dude that looked like he was one of the founding fathers of the United States. You know, he looked like George Washington or whatever. But then it tells you in the paragraph, it says, yeah, he was dark complected. So the picture they give you is a lie. You know, and just like this, right? They'll tell you, oh, they'll show you all these pictures from the 17, 18, 1900s. They won't show you the iconography or the pictures and paintings they have from that time, because they're covering this up. They're taking us to actually being rich with history to being blanco.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, let me play a little more of it. I'm not gonna play that much of it for this episode, because there's something I want to build on here. Let me back up a little.
That was basically in the form of the Ephraimites of the Northern Kingdom trading with the ships of Tarshish out of the area of Gibraltar, what was later called Gibraltar, and trading all the way to North America and up into Europe. These shipping communities or people from these various nations worked together.
Hold on. During the time of David and Solomon, and especially after, they talk about that shipping went westward through the Mediterranean. It also went eastward for thousands of miles, and it is the predecessor to what became known as the Silk Road. So there was worldwide trade centered in that land that our people had been given by the Most High.
Yes, and what I'm noticing too, Israel have became there's a term they use for like a sea power,
naval power, or
yeah. From that time, you read a lot. Even when you read about the Moors, they were powerful sea travelers and sea traders.
And they say they came from the Phoenicians. I was just looking at a book last night that said they descended from the Phoenicians, which is another term for Hebrew Israelite.
Exactly. Not only that, when we're gonna go into it though, when he talks about the Celtics, the Celts and stuff like that, they all these different families that set up kingdoms around the globe were all powerful had a powerful navies, man. So we're gonna bring some of that out. Even when you talk about out in the Gaul, which is modern day France. All right, let me play a little more. Even here, she's talking about the Carthaginians navigate Hanno, established the trading ports.
But they had been established for 700-800 years, 900 years before that, though.
Yeah.
Together to sell goods between these various kingdoms. After the fall of the Northern Kingdom, it seems that many of the Mauritanians went out again to those areas or remained there. And we established that the Carthaginians were also descended from these Moorish people. They were called Barbars, they were called Moors, they were called Carthaginians. They resided in Egypt. And in 70 AD, at the fall of the temple in Jerusalem, there was another swell in the Moorish community in North and West Africa.
And the reason that it was a swell, because they knew their brothers was all over there in that area, Mauritania, from the area of Carthage all the way up to Mauritania and all the way down into West Africa. That whole area was heavily populated with Israel. I can see why the Most High say, "You shall be as the sand of the sea." Because we didn't only heavily populate that whole area, but we went all the way up into Spain, up into Britain, all the way through Europe, heavy populating all those areas. You think there's a lot of Chinese in the world? There's a lot of Israelites in the world, and it's just that we lost our homeland. But she said some important things too. She said they were in Egypt because, we went in that, how a large community of Israelites were in Egypt. And until they had this war with the Roman Empire, where a lot of them, we went through that in the last episode, migrated down to that same area of Mauritania. This is something that's being erased and kept from us, how Israel was constantly migrating into that area of Mauritania, where the Moors end up rising up and becoming a powerful force. I'll play a little more, and I'm gonna want to go into something else that she said.
And but already many of them were already in Europe, in places like Britain and Spain. And a lot of them moved into Europe and began to take it over. And we've also established that it wasn't until 700 CE and perhaps 800, that's, I would say, about 17 to 1800 years after Mauritania was established, that the Arabs began to call themselves Moors.
All right there, I disagree with what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if maybe I misinterpret what she's saying, but I know what happened around that time when the Arabs invaded that area. As we went over something else, we went over the last class when we went into the Moors, was that the Moors or Mauritania, the brothers that was in that area, the Israelites that were in that area, were forced to become Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
Now, them being forced, I think she did bring that out also, but them being forced to become Muslims doesn't make them Arabs. And when you look at how they went into Europe, we brought out the records of them going into Europe with an Israelite brother leading the army, Tariq. It was majority the Berbers or Israelites that were in those areas. What is it, like 10,000 Israelites and about 300 Arabs went up into Spain. And later on, when they separated from the Arabs, where they were fighting with the Arabs, they were still Muslims, but they had their own empires and their own settlements that set up. And they were not Arabs, but they were Muslims. They converted before the Arabs conquered Carthagena, where their sister led the army against them. An Israelite sister, the scriptures, history you pulled out said that she was an Israelite, she was a Jew, led the army against them. Before that, they were into they had a lot of Christians in that area because Paul constantly used to go to that area of Phoenicia. There was a lot of Christians in that, brothers that were Christians, and there were a lot of brothers that were still studying Mosaic customs and traditions. There were a lot of Jews. They find a lot of Jewish temples in those areas. And also some of them, a portion, as always, of Israel was still worshiping the sun god and into paganism. Those were the three main things they were dealing with before they were forced to become Muslims. And after they were forced to become Muslims, they held on to that for a long time. So that's a quick review of the things that we went through in the past classes of Scattered. But what I want to look at now is the thing she said, because she made the statement that they went up into Europe. And one of the things I want to pull out to bring that out is I want to go into this book.
Okay. All right. One thing too about calling them Ishmaelites or Arabs or whatever, that's another way of covering us and covering our history by saying that the people that were us, that had this rich history, were actually Arabs and like from Saudi Arabia. But the whole thing is the aristocracy of those, what you want to call Moors, were Jewish, and there's records that state that. All right. Maybe we'll get into that next time. I know we got into it the last time, but there's a ton of information, and we're just trying to skim over, and we have to, for time's sake, gloss over a lot of this stuff, but it is out there.
Well, we know later on in history too, that whole area, that's why right now when you look at that whole area, you see most people of Arab descent. The Ottoman Turks came in there and totally took over, and they were considered as being Moors, to add to the confusion of who the Moors really are. The Ottoman Turks.
And then
they held power all the way to World War I, because they had that whole area, Egypt, even Iran, Iraq, all that stuff was under Saudi Arabia was all under the rulership of the Ottoman Turks.
And then you look at the Catholic Church's role in financing Islam, because they were fighting true Christianity according to Christ and according to Moses and stuff like that. The whole Bible, actually. They were fighting that and trying to destroy that in Europe, and they were funding the rising up of the Islamicists or the Ishmaelites or whatever from like that 600-700 AD to take care of that in Africa. And, you know, there's several documentaries out there with the historical facts that prove that.
Yes, indeed. Hold on. Let me bring up the cover. All right. So for those of y'all that's got watching the video, this is a book. Can you read that for me?
It's the Sefer, not the rap cipher where we gonna get together and rap about madness and freestyle, but the Sefer.
And the reason we're using the Sefer is one of the few Bibles that has some chapters and some verses that's been not you won't find in the regular Bibles. Like I know 2nd Ezra, the 7th chapter is they have like
100.
Yeah, in the regular Bible it stops at 70, but when you read it, it goes all the way to 140, and it has some powerful information in it. And it also has you know, it has the Book of Jubilee in it. It has the has all the books that, you know, people claim was part of the Bible. The Book of Jasher, the Book of Ezra, now the Book of Enoch and things of that nature in it. But it does have something that we want to look at, which is Acts. It has an extra chapter of Acts, Acts the 29th chapter. And the reason that we want to look at it because it brings out some important information that we know to be true. So we're going to read Acts 29. We're going to read verse 1. I want to read verse 1 down to 8. And then we're going to jump to verse 13. So can you start there for me? Acts 29 and 1. Okay. You see it? Is it is big enough for you to see?
I can see it. If you take us out, it'll be a little bit bigger though. But and it says Acts 29 verse 1, and Paul, full of the blessings of Mashiach, meaning Christ, and abounding
or the
Messiah,
Mashiach.
and abounding in the what is that? The Holy Spirit.
Ruach HaKodesh, meaning the Holy Spirit.
Okay. Thanks for translating for me. Departed out of Rome, determining to go into Spain, for he had a long time purposed to journey thitherward, and was minded also to go from thence into Britain, for he had heard in Phoenicia, meaning Israel, that certain of the children of Israel, about the time of the captivity into the land of Ashur, meaning the Assyrian captivity, which was about 730 BC, had escaped by sea to the isles afar off, as spoken by the prophets, and called by the Romans Britain.
Okay, so this is very important because one of the places that they say, one of the things that we read about, it's in the Hebrewism of West Africa, it tells you that Carthagena was one of the places that Paul visited a lot and was heavily populated with Israelites, and a lot of them had converted to Christianity. And I believe that's what it's talking about when it says that, for he had heard in Phoenicia, that's believed to be Carthaginian area. That Carthaginian was part of the Phoenician Empire, which was ruled by Israelites. So they were telling him that a lot of Israelites during the time of the Assyrian Empire went to Britain. That's the information he was being given. All right. So go ahead, read on.
And you know, in a lot of Bibles, they have a map in the, you know, in the back where they have like the travels of Paul. And if you look, even though it's not mentioned in like a regular Bible, they'll have a map in the back of the regular Bible that shows that he did go to Spain. And I think I was at verse 3, and Christ.
It also speaks about him going to Spain in the book of Romans.
Yes, I was going to pull that up too as well, because I got it up already, and just to show that, you know, we're not going off into conspiracy theories and stuff and trying to say that the scriptures say something that they don't say. You know, this book is a collection of more than just the Old Testament, New Testament, and Apocrypha. So we're using it to show this. But it does say this in Romans. So Acts 29 verse 3, and Christ commanded the Besorah,
which is
the
the gospel.
the gospel, okay, to be preached far hence to the other nations and to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And no man hindered Paul, for he testified boldly of Christ before the tribunes and among the people, and he took with him certain of the brethren which abode with him at Rome, and they took shipping at Ostium, and have the winds fair. Okay. So he wasn't getting a shipwreck like he did in Acts. Were brought safely into a haven of Spain, and much people were gathered from the town and villages and the hill country, for they had heard of the conversion of the apostle and the many miracles which he had wrought. And Paul preached mightily in Spain, and great multitudes believed and were converted, for they perceived he was an apostle sent from the Most High. And they departed out of Spain, and Paul and his company, finding a ship in America, sailed unto Britain. They went therein, and passing along the south coast, they reached a port called Raphanus.
Okay, I'm gonna you know what? Just read verse 8, and we're gonna look at this word, America.
Okay. Now when it was noised abroad that the apostle had landed on their coast, great multitudes of the inhabitants met him, and they treated Paul courteously, and he entered in at the east gate of their city, and lodged in the house of an Ivory, and one of his own nation.
Now, the Ivory is one of the tribes of the Celts. When you look it up, it's one of the tribes of the Celts. But because they were broken up, that's why I brought out that scripture about a proverb and a byword, because it's a tribe of Israel, but yet look at the name that is being given. It's not being given.
It's like when you look at it says in the prologue to the book of Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, some words, when they're translated over and over again, they don't have the same strength as the original language, but you can still get the idea of what the scripture is saying. It's the same thing that happened with us. Israel was prince of the powers. Now we're not even known by that. We've been Phoenicians, Gaul, Celts, Moroccans, Moors, Carthaginians, Africans, and now Black, Negro. So and each time it's been translated into something else, it means more and more different things. Black doesn't mean prince of the powers like Israel did. So that's something that we have to take note of. So America, also spelled Amorica, from Celtic ar on and more, sea, Latin name for the northwestern extremity of Gaul, now Brittany. In Celtic, Roman, and Frankish times, America also included the western part of what later became Normandy in France. In Julius Caesar's time, it was the home of 5 principal tribes, the most important being the Veneti. Under the Roman Empire, it formed part of the province of Gallia Lugdunensis. It received many immigrants from the British Isles in the 5th and 6th centuries during the time of the Saxon invasion.
So all this area right here was heavily populated with Israelites.
Because you look at the records, like I'll give you an example. In Nature Knows No Color Line on page 70, it's either 70 or 71. It shows and it gives the references for the statement it makes. It says there were Negroes or Jews, because these books start using Phoenicians, Negroes, Jews, and stuff interchangeably, to take us from our records to being destroyed as a nation on paper. It says there were Negroes in Britain before Julius Caesar. Okay. So
Yes.
we were already there when they came there and so-called discovered us. Just didn't happen in North Central and South America. It happened elsewhere as well.
Exactly. There's a picture I had, man. I'm gonna show you this one. You see right here. This is all modern day France, but it's called Gaul.
Gallia, Galea,
And they go America, which is and Britain over here, ocean.
Yeah.
Britain. And what's that? This
Gallia Belgica, meaning what eventually became Belgium. But that modern day, that's mostly modern day France. I think the eastern part of it.
and you got Hispaniola, which is Spain. I got one more. Let me show you.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
Show you one more map. This one right here. I had it up, but I took it down. I'm gonna put it back up again. No, that's not it. Oh, here it goes.
Belgica, Celtic, Gaul,
right here.
Erimorica. Yep. And the thing is, you have to remember that England used to rule all of that as well. Britain ruled that because when King James, the translator of the Bible into the into the English, he ruled Britain, Scotland, and this France area.
Yeah. Well, that whole area of France, the Moors pushed all the way into there.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm talking about now after the Moors, after they were, ended up being beaten back into Spain. But King James ruled that area. And it's funny now that the place is present day Europeanized, they don't call this area Celtic. They call Scotland and Ireland Celtic. Because they pushed out the original inhabitants and washed that history. And then the last place they pushed them out from was Ireland and Scotland.
Okay. All right, let me pull this. All right, we're gonna go back to
the video.
No, we're gonna go back to there's some more. We gotta read some more in the Acts 29. So I want to go back to that. Okay, we left off at
verse 8.
Okay, I want to go to I want to jump and go to verse 13.
Okay.
Here it goes.
Oh, you definitely got to blow. Thank you for blowing that up. Okay. Acts 29, verse 13. And it came to pass that certain of the Druids came to Paul privately and showed by their rites and ceremonies they were descended from the Yehudim, or tribe of Judah, which escaped from bondage in the land of Mitzrayim, meaning Egypt. And I want to stop right here because before the time of Christ, there were Israelites living in Egypt. The first part of them had been bought there by Alexander the Greek. And then there were more escaping there, like in the times of Antiochus. Matter of fact, the son of the high priest was friends with Ptolemy and one of the Cleopatras. This was before the famous Cleopatra. But he asked them to build a temple that was a copy of the temple in Jerusalem. And they allowed it. So there were Israelites living in Egypt with a temple, bootleg as it was, but they were trying to serve the Lord as best they could in Egypt. Okay. So showed by their rites and ceremonies, they were descended from the tribe of Judah, which escaped from bondage in the land of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, or Africa. And the apostle believed these things, and he gave them the kiss of peace.
So wait a minute. So these are the famous Druids. I want to read that again. It said, "And it came to pass that certain of the Druids came unto Paul privately and showed by their rites and ceremonies," meaning the things that they were doing, the laws, the way they was keeping the commandments,
Sabbath day.
ceremonies. They were descendants from the Yahudim, meaning they were Jews, which escaped from bondage in the land of Mizraim. And the apostle believed these things, and he gave them the kiss of peace. So I want to look up the Druids.
Yeah, because not all Druids were the ones involved in building what came to be known as Stonehenge. You know, with their pagan ceremonies. Some of the Druids, which were our people, were actually interested in righteousness according to as it is written in the scriptures that they had at that time.
And we noticed too, a lot of times when Israel is keeping the commandments, Esau's records, the records that they write about them, is that they doing witchcraft.
Yeah.
And this ain't coincidental that they doing that. Just because they say that they're in witchcraft don't mean that that's what they were dealing with. So hold on, I can't find this, brother. Give me a second here.
Oh, that's okay. Take your time, bro. There's a whole lot of information that's coming out. You want me to pull up that Romans 15 right quick while you looking for it?
I got it right now. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, here you go. Is that big enough for you? Can you see it?
Yes, sir. Druid, member of the learned class among the ancient Celts. They acted as priests, teachers, and judges, just like how we were saying the aristocracy of the Moors were Jewish.
Exactly. And this is what it is too. They were keeping the laws.
Yeah. The earliest known records of the Druids come from the 3rd century BCE, because if you go back too far in history, it's going to be black. The name may have come from a Celtic, may have come from a Celtic word meaning knower of the oak tree. So it's trying to say that they were pagans, you know, like the scriptures say, knocking on wood and doing all these other things for magical powers. Very little is known for certain about the Druids because they're not going to tell you the truth, because they would have to reveal our history, who kept no records of their own. Sure, they didn't.
Exactly. I want to hear something here about the Celts. It says Druids, members of the learned class among the Celts.
Okay.
All right, read that for me about the Celts.
Celtic religion, religious beliefs and practices of the ancient Celts. The Celts, an ancient Indo-European. How can you India is all the way over there, and Europe is all the way to. Stop with the cover up.
It's just like they call the people that was already here Indians. Well, the people that was already in Europe, they call them Indo-Europe, which were Israelites.
Okay, yeah. You know, dude. And the reason we're laughing about this is through the grace and mercy of the Most High, we've been allowed to come up on enough research combined with what the scriptures say about the scattering and everything to know that this is madness and is part of the cover-up. Taking our history written in black and white on paper and erasing it so it's just a blank sheet of paper for them to fill in with what they want. So we going from Negro, black and white on paper, erase that, and then it's a blank sheet of paper for them to go ahead and write what they want. And that's what they're doing right here. The Celts, an ancient Indo-European people, reached the apogee or apex of their influence and territorial expansion during the 4th century BC. So they don't have any history beyond the 3rd century, but here they're saying that they were great in the 4th century. So they do have history past the 3rd. You know, reached the apex of their influence and territorial expansion during the 4th century BC, extending across the length of Europe from Britain to Asia Minor. So they must have been, you know, like possibly remnants or connected with the Etruscans, the Spartans, let's just, from the 3rd century BC onward, their history is one of decline and disintegration. And with Julius Caesar's conquest of Gaul, Celtic independence came to an end on the European continent because the prophecy said that Rome was going to be raised up. In Britain and Ireland, this decline moved more slowly, but traditional culture was gradually eroded through the presence of political subjugation.
Okay, so they were considered religious, but we know that they were part of the Jewish. So what were they following? You know, they were really following the Mosaic laws.
Yeah, and then the thing is, bro, when that corruption comes in, because the scriptures tell you that we have an affinity to turn our backs to the Most High and deal with the customs and the religions and the paganism of the other nations. So as we do that, of course, our society is going to decline. That's why you have Stonehenge. And they wouldn't have the ability to know how to rebuild Stonehenge as it sits today if they didn't have the records. So they have records and they know about the Druids that were not pagan. All right. But they're not going to reveal it because it would reveal the history and who it truly belongs to.
Okay. I want to read one more thing about this tribe here. I forgot. In Amorica, the tribe, the Veneti.
Veneti, Celtic people.
Ancient
Celtic people who lived in what is now the Morbihan district of modern Brittany. By the time of Julius Caesar, they controlled all Atlantic trade to Britain.
How did they get that? How did they get to control the trade?
Because that trade had been with that people since David and Solomon.
Thank you.
And even though that kingdom was on a downward spiral, they were still involved in it and had dominion in certain areas. All right. So that's what it is. They submitted to Caesar in 57 BC, but the next winter, disturbed by his interest in Britain, they seized some Roman commissariat officers and, with the support of several maritime states, Phoenician, attempted to regain independence. Caesar built galleys in the Loire River, and in the late summer of 56, met the Venetic fleet of more than 200 ships in Quiberon Bay and destroyed it. After his victory, Caesar executed the tribal elders and sold the rest of the people as slaves. By some means, however, the tribe as such survived and is attested in imperial times.
So these people were maritime. They were a navy people, man. They had, you know, Israel always, like I was saying, always had a powerful navy. And this is around the same, well, before then they destroyed the Phoenician navy. Rome destroyed the Phoenician navy as well, but they also ended up destroying them in Europe.
But now let me ask you what you know of Roman history. Have you ever heard of Caesar, Julius Caesar, having a naval battle?
No, they don't talk about naval battles. But Rome did have a lot of navy battles, man.
Yeah, they don't. They want you to think that it was a land conquest. And a lot of times, if they reveal this history, it's going to raise curiosity, and people are going to go and dig into that history and come out with black Hebrew faces.
Yeah, because those were the ones that was controlling a lot of that shipping that was being done at sea. It was being transferred out of the hand of Israel into the hands of Esau.
Yep. So
Israel held it for a long time.
Yeah.
They held it for a long time, but they had to fall.
Yeah.
So let me read a few more verses in here, and we'll move on from this.
Okay.
So read 14 down to 17, and we'll move on.
Okay. And Paul abode in his lodging 3 months, confirming in the faith and preaching Christ continually. And after these things, Paul and his brethren departed from Raphanus and sailed unto Atium in Gaul. And Paul preached in the Romae garrisons, and among the people, exhorting all men to repent and confess their sins. And there came to him certain of the Belgate to inquire of him of the new doctrine and of the man Christ. And Paul opened his heart unto them and told them all things that had befallen him, howbeit that the Jesus Christ came into the world to save sinners. And they departed, pondering among themselves upon the things which they had heard.
So yeah, so these are all different tribes of Israel that was
Mm-hmm.
in Gaul.
Mm-hmm.
Celts, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
They were all occupying these areas, and they were also in the Roman army.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the Roman military.
And you look, the sister in her documentary, she brought about how the Gauls, the tribe of Dan up by the Danube River, but they weren't just there. They were all the way over to the seacoast.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that by the time Paul got to Rome, when he talked to the Hebrews in Rome, they had said, listen, we don't know about this new thing you teaching about this Christ, but we heard that everywhere is spoken against. So the word had traveled from Jerusalem to Rome before Paul got there about this Christ, and there was something new going on and how to serve the Most High, because this new covenant and all this other stuff, right? But now who said it stopped at Rome? So that's why when Paul went farther than that, like it says in that chapter, and it tells you in Romans 15 how he purposed to go to some of these places, right? The word had already been there, because the word was spreading like wildfire about who this man was. Matter of fact, we did the episode we did on the Berbers. How about the time shortly after Christ, there was not only synagogues there, but there was Christians in that area too, of our people that had converted from Moses to Christ, which is not a different doctrine. It's the same doctrine. It's just having everything in your mind instead of on scrolls,
Yeah. There's a lot more information, a lot of books
yeah.
too, man, that show you that they were all over these areas, the Gaul and the Dan. There's a brother that has he has a lot of pictures up on, a lot of information up on Facebook about that. I just didn't want to use his information, but he did put up a lot of different he used books and things of that nature. Books I don't personally have my hands on. And I don't want to use his I didn't want to use his image without talking to him.
Yeah.
So I didn't use it. But anyway, let's go into if you don't got nothing you want to bring out right now.
Yeah, something real quick. I want to bring out the Romans just to read it, because I said it, but it's better if I go into reading it.
Okay.
It's Romans 15, and I got it pulled up already. So let me see. Where are we at here? All right. And we got Romans 15, right? And let's go to verses 24 and 28. It says, Romans 15:24, whensoever I take my journey into Spain, I will come to you, for I trust to see you in my journey and to be brought on my way thitherward by you, if first I be somewhat filled with your company. Now let's skip down to verse 28. When therefore I have performed this and have sealed to them this fruit, meaning talking about the understanding of Christ, I will come by you into Spain. So this going into Spain and visiting these areas is not a far-fetched thing, when of Paul's travels, when we look at it, And another thing, right quick, because we're talking about Europe, right? I want to look at this Nature Knows No Color line, which was written in 1952. All right, and I'm gonna have to blow it up a little bit. And oh, wait a minute. This other way. Okay, so I'm on page 120. Let me go up here. Nature Knows No Color line, page 123, right? Tacitus of about 90 AD says many asserts that the Jews are an Ethiopian race. For Romans to have taken them as for Ethiopians is clear indication of their color, since the Ethiopians were definitely black to the Romans. Okay, so now and remember, Paul was mistaken for an African, right? When he was about to speak to the people, and he asked the guard, "Yo, can I speak to them? Because they being rowdy and they accusing me and stuff." And he was like, "Yo, ain't you that African?"
Mm-hmm.
So that just lets you know that Paul was an example of that. So now in this book, Waits says, and these are the references, like this 31 here, 31. Waits says an interesting gradation of all shades down to the black is exhibited by the Jews. So, on page 12 of this book, it says that and it has references, there is no proof that of the 70 souls that went into Egypt in Joseph's time, or 70, 75 or whatever it was, souls, there's no proof that any of them people that were Hebrew Israelites were white. But it does say that there is a gradation of shades from light-skinned all the way down to black. And that's exhibited by the Jews. Okay, listen. Now I'm just going to read on. And you can see the references down here if I scroll down farther. Especially dark were the Jews of Spain and Especially dark were the Jews of Spain and Portugal. Who was in Spain and Portugal? The Moors.
Mm-hmm.
The Portuguese Jews were very dark, says Pritchard. The Duchess de Abrantes, wife of Napoleon's ambassador to Portugal, said that the Jew, the Negro, and the Portuguese can be seen in a single person. So when they use this term, Phoenician, Jew, Negro, such and such, that they stopped. They were first saying Hebrew, then they started saying Jew, then they started saying Phoenician, then they started saying Negro as time went on.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the degradation in translation of who we actually are. Okay. So dark were the Jews, especially of Portugal and southern Spain, that many whites thought all Jews were black or dark. Now, check this out. Many of the Jews who were banished from Portugal by John II, then there's some pictures here. Oh, pictures of Jews in Holland. Okay. Settled in the West Indies. So many of the Jews that were, we know a lot of them were forcibly immigrated into Morocco and Mauritania, but a lot of them went and settled in the West Indies. John Bigelow, who visited Jamaica in 1850, saw the descendants of these Jews and said that they were Negroid or Negroid. And then there is the reference. Listen to this.
So they came out of Spain.
Yes. Yep. And then the ones, remember, in Portugal, they were pushed into Europe. But this dude is there in 1850 and said, yo, listen, I'm looking at the descendants of these people and they're Negroes. Because now we're not calling them Hebrews. We're not calling them Jews. We're calling them Negroes now. Then we calling them colored. Then we calling them black. No, then we calling them black. Then we calling them colored. Then we calling them African American. Thank you, Jesse Jackson. you minion. So unless you repent, I'm gonna read on. The Eastern Jews who settled in 'Poland and Russia were Negroid too. Count Adam Gorowski of Poland, who visited the United States in 1857, said the Jews of his country strongly resembled American mulattoes. Well, yeah, when you have less intense summers and more intense winters, your skin is going to get lighter. Numbers of Jews, he said, have the greatest resemblance to the American mulattoes. Sallow complexion, thick lips, crisped black hair. Of all the Jewish population scattered over the globe, he called it glove, but over the globe, 1/4 dwells in Poland. I am therefore well acquainted with their features. On my arrival in this country, America, I took every light-colored mulatto for a Jew because of what he had seen in his country. All right. Considerable Negro strain was found too among the Polish Jews in London. For years, 2 New York white dailies or daily newspapers, The News and the Mirror, have been advertising kinky hair straightened permanently in one treatment. The service is for whites only because they were so light. They could pass for white, but they still had that 4C hair. The customers are probably Jews. A Negro hairdresser in Harlem once had many of them amongst her customers. Okay, so that was just what I wanted to bring out, because that book, and there are other books that we found that have so much verification of when the Most High said, I'm going to scatter you to the 4 corners of the earth. He meant it. And he actually did it. And it wasn't one time in 70 AD. It was several times. Every time we sinned. I mean, when Jonathan and his armor bearer in 1 Samuel went to fight the Philistines, there were Hebrews that had been taken captive during the time of the judges that were in the Philistines' army. And Jonathan and Saul started destroying them so much that the Hebrews that were in the Philistines' army deserted and came and stood with Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, listen, we're Hebrew too. We're going to fight with you. Okay. This is going back to the time of the book of Judges, right after the book of Joshua. We have been scattered multiple, probably hundreds of times since then, not only on a nationwide basis, but on an individual basis. Then it probably get to the thousands and millions of times, because you acting up, the Most High bankrupt you, and now you got to travel somewhere else to live. You know, in the time of Nehemiah and Ezra, what did they do? The men were marrying women of other nations, and the children were growing up, could only speak half the Hebrew tongue and half the language of the mother. And then they looked Israel, but they were not an Israelite, a true Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. So guess what they did? They confessed their sins, and they repented and put those kids away and sent a lot of them children, being male, put them out of the country. So they were scattered. And that was even during a time when we had mercy. We've been scattered and scattered. The Most High said, like a whirlwind. That's what he was going to put on us. And that's what he did. And you don't have to believe the Bible. Look at the books. Yeah. And that's always going to bring you back to the Bible. The brother that was on the video in the beginning, all he said is Israel is scattered. He used many words to say it, but that's all he said. You can go look at these books if you don't want to believe the Bible. It's going to bring you right back to the Bible if you want to know our true history. And that was it.
And the thing is too, what a lot of people say, well, a lot of people went into slavery. True. There were a lot of different nations and a lot of different races that suffered slavery. But when you're talking about suffering slavery to the point where you are erased as a people, no, that did not happen to a lot of people.
Only
that
us.
Fits us. We the ones that was enslaved to the point. That's why the scripture said he will put a yoke of iron upon thy neck till thou be destroyed. We the one that was erased from Israel. So there's some things I want to bring out of this book also. Nature Knows No Color Line. For those of y'all that's watching the video, this is what the book looks like from J.A. Rogers. And I want to read something on page 70, brother. This is page, I know it doesn't show here, but it's page
I can go to it.
It's page 69.
Page 69. I can pull it up on mine because it'll be bigger.
Oh, you don't think? Hold on. Let me open it up a little for you. Because it picks up kind of like where we left off about the Moors.
The Negro, meaning Hebrew, as Moor. Negro, meaning Hebrew, ancestry in aristocratic European families.
And this is before. This goes before the Moors going into Europe. They were like we was bringing out. They were scattered throughout Britain, and I think he's going to mention that also. Scotland and all that, France. I was talking to one brother. He has some information. I don't have that information right now, but see if he could bring it out for me. Where this king here, Charles Martel, he said was an Israelite as well.
Yeah, because this was the Dark Ages, the time, the era, the almost 1,000 years that Europe was under rule by the Darks. When I was in school, in grammar school, they started calling it, or elementary school, they started calling it the Middle Ages, but it was always known as the Dark Ages. And there is artwork out there from these times, 900, 800 AD, all the way up into the 1800s, of dark-skinned or mulatto kings, knights, and rulers from Europe. They won't show you that in the school though, or in the books, because
no.
They don't want you to know your history, because they want to take and have that psychological advantage over you. It's not the teacher. They've been compartmentalized. It is the ones that profit from having their kingdom still in existence because you won't come back to the Lord. That's what it is.
Yeah, and keeping you as a slave.
That's it.
So go ahead, read that for me.
Okay. 7 years after the capture of Gibraltar, the Moors invaded France and conquered or overran most of its southern portion. They probably went as far east as Geneva, Switzerland. Switzerland was then a part of France. Remember, because you showed that map where it wasn't the present day borders of France and went more eastward and northward, which was France. And actually that area was Gallic, I think.
Yeah, and there were a lot of them. They were Christians at that time, and we believe there was a lot of Israelites there. And the thing is, too, you got to understand that a lot of them, they didn't care that you was an Israelite, because remember, the Moors was studying Islam at this time.
Yes.
So the division in wars was being fought over religion. If you're not the same religion, then we'll go to war. So you could have an Israelite that was a Christian and an Israelite that was a Muslim. They'll fight each other in battle in a heartbeat.
Exactly. And a lot of times, and it says elsewhere in this book, Nature Knows No Color Line, a lot of these wars and stuff that you think was African Moors versus present day European looking Christians or stuff like that, they weren't actually fighting over race. They were fighting over religion. And he gives the references. So like you said, bro, it would be two Israelites of different religious strata, and they would so fanatic in it that they would go to war, trying to impose their version of how to serve the Most High on each other.
Exactly.
In 732, they reached Tours, 2 days march from Paris, but were beaten back by the Christians under Charles Martel. They remained in southern France, however, until 1140, principally in the Camaric. Excuse me, I haven't taken French in so long. Camaric on the Western Riviera, which is still known as La Petite Afrique, or Little Africa. Wow, the French Riviera used to be known as Little Africa. How about that? How about that? The most valuable real estate in the world was started by us. How about that? In 838, they took Marseille, and by 842, Arles. Aided by fellow Muslims from the east, they captured Sicily in 837 and took 1,000,000 pieces of gold. In 846, they invaded Italy, seized Rome, plundered the Vatican and St. Peter's Cathedral, and carried off immense wealth and gold, jewelry, tapestry, and paintings. I think this is when they moved the seat of the Roman Empire. It was either north or northeast because of that invasion. Later, with the Jews as an intermediary, they sold back much of this loot to the Pope. They did a drive-by.
I want to jump down to here, the highlighted part.
Okay. In Africa, the Moors continued to be a leading power, and to no little extent in India also. Remember, Alexander the Great he couldn't even get into India. He went as far as up to them, but couldn't. They dominated the Mediterranean and the North Atlantic and plundered the coasts of Western Europe and the British Isles.
See, there go that powerful navy again.
They even conquered and ruled parts of Scotland. Well, David MacRitchie, eminent British archaeologist, says, so late as the 10th century, 3 of these provinces were wholly or entirely black, and the supreme ruler of them became for a time the paramount king of transmarine Scotland. Ooh.
There we go.
We see one of the black people, the Moors of the Romans.
Let me go to the next page.
Yeah.
Hold on. Here we go.
The Moors of the Romans in the person of a king of Alban in the 10th century. History knows him as Kenneth, sometimes as Dubba, and as Niger. Now, why, like when it says that the apostles were at that city in Acts, they called the one brother Niger? Why is that? Because he was dark-skinned.
And you know that King Kenneth Duff, that bloodline went all the way to King James.
Yes.
That's the royal bloodline.
We know as an historical fact that a Niger El Duff has lived and reigned over certain black divisions of our islands and probably white divisions also, and that a race known as the Sons of the Black succeeded him in history. Reference number 4. Welsh meaning Irish. Traditions, he says, tell also of these black people, and the legends and history of the Scottish Highlands are both witnesses to the existence of a purely black people there. Uh-oh.
Okay.
Well, seems like somebody's been lied to in history class.
Absolutely.
I
want to read a little some of this book too. Then I want to play a video before we end it. I got a video clip I want to play. And this book here is the Negro rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. And you see them with Star Davids on, and these are coat of arms that you would also see these coat of arms emblems here. In Nature Knows No Color line. These are coat of arms of royal families in Europe.
So blow that up a little bit, because I want to see the coats of arms. That red lion and that black eagle are on crests of today's worldwide elite European families, and they call themselves of this so-called shown of the light of the information, if I could say it that way, bloodline. There are these things in their crests, meaning that they assimilated into this bloodline. They They came and dealt with it, and then they eventually took it over because the Most High allowed them to, just like they came and assimilated here in North America and congregated in it and built up their forces and then took it over. These bloodlines have been taken over. And these are the people that are the so-called elites with us today. And one more thing, I am pretty sure that those are either Phoenician or Nordic Viking ships in the background, but that's a whole nother class.
Mm-hmm. So we see these brothers always had a powerful navy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Even David had two navies. One under Hiram in Tyre and Zidon, and one in the land of Edom in the Red Sea.
Mm.
Okay.
This is page 10 of this book. We're gonna read. Start right here first.
Okay. Blow it up a little bit. Okay. All right. Thank you. The white peasant blood slowly spilled into the royal Negro Moorish blood following the French Revolution of AD 1789.
There's a lot of information about that French Revolution, man. They got it hit real good.
Yep. They overthrew the black rulership, and the present day Europeans took over.
Yeah, there was a lot going on, man, when Haiti got its independence. And one thing I found out about that war in Haiti, it started with the black people. It started with the free blacks, not the black slaves, but the free blacks. Yep. So history is very complicated, man, because a lot of blacks, what I'm finding out, there's a lot of black people had plantations, not only in Haiti and in France, but also in America.
300, 400. I was reading one had 279 and another family had 300 something or 400 something acres. And the thing about it is, when you look at Napoleon, he said, my beef with Haiti is not
we're gonna bring that out. We're gonna bring the video out. I got it. I'm gonna play the video.
All right, because I know we talked about it a while back. Let me get back to reading.
And the thing with Tucson, did you know that Tucson had about 2 or 3 plantations itself?
Yes. And it was a war about money, but they wanted to stop the progress of our people specifically in the world moving forward because they knew who we are.
That French Revolution was a major point of history. It was like the last great battle. And the Haitian Revolution was like the last great battle of Israel before the total demise. So that fall that started probably it started with the Spanish, I would say. The fall of us started with the Spanish around 14 AD.
Yeah, but they kicked us out of Spain first.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was the beginning of it. But the last great battle was right here in France. And that was it. We were done after that fall. But we also had the fall, and we fell before then. We fell in Europe and Spain. Like I said, we said started in Spain, then it went to England and France. So go ahead, read that.
The white peasant blood slowly spilled into the royal Negro Moorish blood following the French Revolution of AD 1789. Today, Queen Elizabeth's lineage is traced all the way back to the 10th century Scottish King Kenneth Duffy, Niger, or Black, whose noble blood is linked to Kenneth MacAlpin, who we just read about. The Negro royal blood also fused into the royal houses of early Northern Europe. However, following the 18th century, the once known and accepted knowledge of Europe's Negro royal admixture has been quietly hushed and secretly tucked away from the pages of history. Remember that lady was walking around with Queen Elizabeth, and she had that lapel pin on, and it was a blackamoor?
Yes.
And they was like, yo, man, what did you do? No, they were letting you know that they had come in, whether through Germany or England or both, and assimilated into, slowly taken control and took over that bloodline and that royal position because we were sinful, and the Most High raised them up to do this to us because it was fulfillment of the conditions laid out in the scriptures.
And also, they had one pin I wish I would have thought of it. I would have pulled up
Yeah.
a picture where
Mm-hmm.
the Queen Elizabeth, the modern queen that just passed, she had a pin on where it had a white man who had his foot on the black man.
Yes. And because that's what they did. This is all of this. Sun never sets on British soil and all of this stuff and all of the ruling and stuff. That was supposed to be for us, but only in righteousness. If we did it in unrighteousness, the Most High was going to take it from us and put it on the bottom. And where are we at now?
We're on the bottom, but we're gonna get the world back.
But only in Christ.
Yeah, those of us that repent in Christ, we're gonna get the whole world back like we had at one time.
Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna start at however. However, following the 18th century, the once known and accepted knowledge of Europe's Negro royal admixture has been quietly hushed, went from Negro to Blanco, and secretly tucked away from the pages of history. It's telling you right there. The newly aged Euro scholars, governments, big businesses, and white supremacists have deliberately rewritten the history of Europe. The Europeans have barbarously burned, looted, and disfigured thousands of old Hebrew European royal paintings, sculptures, and public works. What was World War I and World War II all about? Those 24-hour bombing raids on Germany? What was that about? In order to erase any evidence of an early Negro/Hebrew dominance. They even have that erasure here when they say African, because we ain't African.
Exactly.
Continuing on, there wasn't one nation in Europe that was free of a Negro blue blood superior rule. Reference number 10. A supremacy that ended following the French Revolution. Because what did they say? What did they do? They moved by fomenting revolution. That's how they doing it here now in America. Every painted portrait of Europe's royal families was of Negro ancestry. I have some of those pictures. They were black-skinned, so-called African Moors, but we know they were Hebrew, who paraded their dark complexion as a badge of honor, pride, privilege, and royalty, because that's how Israel was set up in the days of Solomon and David. It was not unusual for lighter blacks and whites to walk around in blackface, the Al Jolson style, in order to look more upper class. Wow.
So the blackface paintings originally was done as a good thing.
Yeah.
To try to imitate us. Not only that, when you read about the woolly hair that they wore as judges,
that's from us.
That was from black royalty. Even the dresses with the big butts that they did in early European dresses, that was imitating our women. There's a video too, man. This guy, he does a real good job, man, bringing that information out, man. About how those dresses and the woolly hair that they wore all came from ancient Europe, and how they try to imitate the royalty of the blacks.
Wow.
So go ahead, read on, bro.
Many of today's images of black rulers of Europe are falsely propagandized as white people. Their portraits have been whitened, distorted, or merely invented to give a fake impression of Europe's earlier rulers. Reference number 11. So he's not just speaking that, pulling something out the crack of his behind. There's references. However, there remains some authentic black portraits that are hidden from public view, while a few are exhibited in the Natural Portrait Gallery in London. Really? It's kind of like, when they have the papyrus from Egypt that describes the 10 plagues, they have it locked up in a museum, I think, in Germany or France, and they won't let anybody see it because it's that old and fragile. No, they don't want nobody to see it so they can have proof, because they're going to get
every European museum. Let me go to the next page, page 11.
Okay. All right. Every European museum has overpainted 99% of black portraits with fake white skin color. And remember, the skin color of our people went from very light to very dark. But they're not only painting over it with this white color, they're painting over the features as well. The remaining lost or hidden dark-skinned portraits, when found and exposed to the public, are falsely identified to have looked black because of poor upkeep, outright negligence, or the portrait itself was exposed to a horrific fire. How absurd, since the prime objective is to cover up evidence that Europe was once ruled by a dark-skinned African Moorish, so-called, when we know it was Hebrew, royal people.
It's just a byword again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. When slavery began in AD 1441, every nation of Europe was ruled by a royal house of Negro ancestry, whom centuries later, following the French Revolution AD 1789, practiced self-discrimination by racially reclassifying themselves into various white ethnic groups to hide their true so-called African Moorish origin. And then it has 3 references, or a mark for references after that. So he's not pulling it out of his behind or bumped his head and had an epiphany. He's actually went and did the research.
Okay, I want to play this clip.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull up this clip real quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's very. I want to start at this clip is the Haitian Revolution documentary 2009 by the Blackest Panther. Is the originator of the video. There's a lot to cover. I'm not going to go through everything because we're running out of time. We're about to end it. But I do want to play this last clip. I want to share this last clip. What happened was the French Revolution started in the summer of 1789. The revolution in Haiti didn't start to August of 1791. As I said, it was blacks in Haiti that were complaining about the condition on how they were being treated by the whites. Free blacks were being treated, discriminated against by the whites, and they appealed to the government, and the government told them to treat them better and treat them fair. So the whites that was there was mad, and they was looking at what was going on in America and other places, and was like, yo, we ain't doing that. We're not listening. They were talking about separating from the government of France. And they started mistreating the blacks even more. And that's when they said, man, the hell with this. And they retaliated. And so that's when the revolution had started in Haiti. But I want to play something that was said by Napoleon, a couple things that Napoleon said. So let me share this screen real quick. Okay. You large in the.
In 1798, as Toussaint Louverture was evicting the last of the British from his island, another French general battled British interest halfway around the world in Egypt. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte.
Well, Toussaint and Napoleon in many ways are similar. Both were a little bit from the margins of French society. They succeeded through military brilliance, and they were both incredible military leaders, and they became political leaders as a result of their military experience.
But Napoleon's victories would put Toussaint's at risk. Just months after conquering Egypt, Napoleon marched into Paris. A coup d'etat toppled the revolutionary government, and Napoleon took the reins of power. The revolution is over, he declared. I am the revolution.
Okay, so they spent a lot of time in Egypt breaking off and shooting off the noses off of statues with cannons and guns. I wonder why.
And then when he went, I didn't really go into this. You know, maybe we could do another class on this thing, man, because this French Revolution thing is very interesting. Toussaint has sent a group there to France to appeal to the government that was there at the time, and they had this was like in 1794, before Napoleon did this. They freed all slaves in France and in Haiti. But when Napoleon came into power, he reinstituted slavery. So it shows you there was some type of flip of power that was going on here. There was something going on here that they trying to hide the information of. But let me move up a little. We'll go to, I want to go up to here.
But that was enough to send Napoleon over the edge.
Napoleon Bonaparte had had enough of revolution, and according to Napoleon, the U.S. President, Thomas Jefferson, shared his view.
The prospect of a Black Republic is equally disturbing to the Spanish, the English, and the Americans.
So he said a Black Republic is equally disturbing to the Spanish, who had revolution, and they were the first one to have that revolution where they was enslaving the blacks that was in Spain. To the Americans, which was overthrowing blacks in America, revolution. And in England, he said to the English, which was, I mean, English and America were connected, but they had a revolution in England also. So he's talking about revolution is they had enough of revolution now that they are in power, and they said to have a Black Republic in Haiti was disturbing to all of them.
Yeah, because they didn't want anybody fighting their world takeover.
Exactly. They just been taking over Black power. Now they see a revolution going on in Haiti. We got to put a stop to this. But even though they were fighting each other, they unified to try to stop the Haitian Revolution.
Jefferson has promised that at the instant the French army has arrived, all measures will be taken to starve Toussaint. Rid us of these gilded Negroes, and we will have nothing more to wish for.
So Jefferson, which was fighting French himself, said he would send soldiers to help him fight them in Haiti. So they were enemies, but yet they were friends when it came to fighting us.
Yeah, and he sent them money in exchange for the Louisiana Purchase. And what had happened was, well, this was a little bit later, but it was up to us under the doctrine of manifest destiny to fight, for them to fight our people that were here in America, natives, so-called before them. And then they had the money and the resources to go against Haiti and do what they were going to do.
Toussaint tried urgently to show Napoleon that military logic, if nothing else, proved the merit of Black ambitions.
Toussaint was writing Napoleon. He wanted so much to be recognized as saving this land for France.
His efforts failed. In 1802, Toussaint was stunned to see the largest French expeditionary force ever assembled entering Saint-Domingue's harbor. Its mission was simple. Napoleon wanted to turn back the clock.
My decision to destroy the authority of the Blacks in Saint-Domingue is not so much based on consideration of commerce and money as on the need to block forever the march of the Blacks in the world.
So now that's a powerful statement. When you hear him say that, and being a general, we know that generals study histories of all these wars. He knows about the Moors. He knows about the wars that French had. He knows about the wars in Gaul. He knows about the wars, the wars that Julius Caesar had with the Gauls, which were Israelites also. He knows about the different wars they had with the the Moors. So when
Mhm.
he makes the statement about stopping the march of the blacks in the world, not in
Mhm.
France,
Mhm.
but in the world forever,
Mhm.
you're not going to just stop the march by conquering the people. You have to stop the march by destroying the people, by
Mhm.
taking their identity and their history away from them, so they would never think that they was great enough to uprise and fight against you. You have to
Exactly.
tell that people that, you know what, you were nothing but in the jungle and a slave. You never built nothing. You never invented nothing. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? That's what you have to do to stop their march in the world,
Mhm.
and that's
And
what was done.
pull up that screen that I pulled up while we talking,
Okay.
because a lot of people may not have heard it. And this is what he said, the written version of what he said. And you can see I'm on the website, AZ Quotes. I just typed in a search, for Napoleon Bonaparte quotes on Haiti. So this was what they were doing. You got to remember, even though he, was eventually destroyed because they said he went mad or whatever, he fulfilled his role. He was set up and financed by his grandparents or his relatives or whatever, second, fifth, sixth cousins or whoever it was, to do what he did. And the French Revolution was to take out the old, had been there royalty and place in a new European, present day European looking rulership. If you go back in on Henry VIII and all of these, kings and their lineage, like we just did, it shows you who they are, and this is what they were doing because the Most High raised them up to put us under their feet. And that goes back to that pin that Queen Elizabeth was wearing before she died. Go ahead, bro.
No, you good. You good.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just that, when and it goes back to, like I said, before we went into the promised land, we were given these conditions. Listen, you obey. This is the covenant. You obey, you get this. You disobey, you get that. Then Christ came and said, listen, this world is going to be trodden down by these people and these other nations until the time of their existence or their prophecy is fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
But with how the only war we have to fight against anything is to conquer our lusts and desires and put the understanding and wisdom of Christ, according to as it is written, in our mind. And that's how we'll get the victory. And it says in Revelation, when there's a certain a number that is enough to the Most High, that has that down pat, and we are serving, their kingdom is going to be over in an hour, and they know this. That's why they hit us with alternative lifestyles. That's why they hit us with bail reform, because they want us to go into crime and stuff like that against the words of the Lord, knowing that we won't have to do jail time. That's why they making weed and other drugs legal, because they want us to get high, going against the words of the Most High. They want all of us to sin so that their kingdom can be extended.
Exactly.
So what we're doing actually and in truth is, when we disobey the Most High, we are doing our part to keep their kingdom enacted and in place. When we turn to the Most High and repent and grow in that understanding of Christ, we are actually destroying the stability of their kingdom. They won't tell you that because they wouldn't want you to know. They don't want you to know that we were kings and rulers and royalty. But
Yeah.
they because that would say, you know what, how can we get that back? And then we'll start studying the scriptures, and then we'll be like, oh, this all I gotta do is control my lusts and my desires. Yo, this is easy. And we find out sometimes it's not so easy, but we still have to do it. And then the Most High is going to send Christ and the angels in to do the cleanup work and deal with their governments. We have to deal with ourselves and deal rightly with each other. Like the brother said at the beginning, when we have that low people psychology or the low people respect, we do all of this stuff that's against the Most High, if we find out that we are who the Most High made us to be, if we do certain things, we going to be that royalty and act that way, and that's going to shorten and even end their kingdom. So all this talk about oppression ain't nothing and cannot be fixed unless we serve the Most High according to the understanding of Christ as it is written. That's all I had.
Yeah, well, you know, they put people over us in our societies, you know, the people we look up to.
Yeah.
They're just there to keep us in line, man. Whether you look at people in Hollywood, whether you look at people in academia, you know what I'm saying? A lot of these people, man, the what they call these guys,
gatekeepers,
yeah. The boule, thank you. These are rich, educated blacks that are just there to make sure you stay in line.
Educated,
even in the music, music industry, it's all to keep you down and keep you in line and keep you blind and destroyed. Okay, so I want to close it with a quick scripture. Jeremiah. I'm gonna go to Jeremiah. Let me take this down.
Okay, I got the Bible up too, bro. If you don't want to pull it up, I got it up already.
Okay.
If you just
I got it up.
Okay, all right, cool.
Jeremiah 23.
Okay,
we're just gonna read a few verses. Start at verse 5 for me.
Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 5. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth.
And that king is talking about Christ. All right. So he's the one that we have to turn to. So go ahead.
Verse 6. In his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely, and this is his name, whereby he shall be called the Lord our righteousness.
So that king is the one we have to turn to and we have to follow, because he's our righteousness. He's the one that died for our sins, and he's the one that's instructing us in how we need to walk and be. And he's the one that's going to execute the true judgment in the world and put us back up where we belong and bring them back down where they belong. So go ahead, read on.
Verse 7. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt.
So that's what the whole world knows about. They know about the God that brought the Israelites out of Egypt. But he's not gonna. That's not what they're gonna be known about no more. He's not gonna be known for that. So go ahead, read on.
Verse 8. But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country and from all countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land.
So see that? So we're gonna be taken out of all the countries whether we was driven, including Babylon the Great. And we're going to go back to our land once again. All right. So with that, if you don't have nothing else.
I'm good, bro. All praises to the Most High through Christ.
Yeah, we ran out of time. You know, Lord's will, we'll continue with this. Giving all praise to the Most High in Christ for the knowledge, for the understanding, for the information. We pray that the Most High bless you. Bless your wisdom. As always, bless your understanding. And increase the fruits of your righteousness.
Shalom.
I was so down, I was drowning. I ain't know I had a purpose. Looking for you, I was searching for you, and I'm learning. Yeah. I was haunted by the serpent. Had to keep my soul close, cause the Most High is who I'm serving. Yeah. I was so down, I was drowning. I ain't know I had a purpose. Looking for you, I was searching for you, and I'm learning. Yeah. I was haunted by the serpent. Had to keep my soul close, cause the Most High is who I'm serving. Yeah. I was so down, I was drowning. I used to look down in my heart and be drowning. And you know that this water is dark, need to escape, the pressure is hurting. Yeah, deeper I go, stuck in my woes. The sin is a struggle, I'm fighting it though. The pressure inside is cooking my mind. I need to repent, I'm hurting inside. Yeah, every day we go and fight, vigilant till the day that we die. Cause we ain't giving up alive, we just go harder for Christ. Daily battle, daily bread, gotta go eat, gotta stay fed. It ain't no game when the evil try and drag. Watch my back, my brody look ahead. So we defending the truth. If it come down to death, then we dying for you, Lord. So we stay patient, giving them praises all the way up to you, Lord. And the Most High come first, gotta build faith or end up in a hearse. Looking for living waters, searching for living water. I was so down, I was drowning. I ain't know I had a purpose. Looking for you, I was searching for you, and I'm learning, yeah, yeah. I was haunted by the serpent. Had to keep my soul close, cause the Most High is who I'm serving, yeah, yeah. I was so down, I was drowning. I ain't know I had a purpose. Looking for you, I was searching for you, and I'm learning.